Imagine preparing for a high-stakes prize for months. You're mentally bracing to starve on an island for 39 days. You're bulking up, pushing your body harder than you ever have. You're at wilderness survival camp learning how to make fire and shelter and outlast whatever nature and other people throw at you, all for a shot at $1 million and the title of sole survivor. Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Mari. You might know me from YouTube, from my time at Smosh, or maybe you're here because you're a Survivor super fan. Either way, welcome. This is the very first episode of my new series, What I Learned. Because at its core, Survivor is a show about human behavior, how we act under pressure and how we make decisions and how we operate in absolute survival mode. We're talking about the stuff you don't see on TV, the moments that stuck with me long after the cameras stopped rolling, and how I processed the real drama that comes with reality TV much later, which led to shaping how I think about life and failure and fame and growth and everything else in between. So whether you've been watching my videos for the last 15 years or you just stumbled upon this one, my hope is that these stories give you something you can carry into your own life as well, even if you never ever step foot on a remote island with a bunch of strangers like I did. Lastly, if it's not completely obvious, I will be spoiling the heck out of the results of my game and how things played out on my season. So if you haven't watched and you don't want the spoilers, then I look forward to seeing you back here when you're done watching the season. Before I tell you how it all came crashing down, we need to rewind and see where it all started. I sent in my audition in January, and by March, it was official. I am a contestant on CBS's Survivor. To this day, saying those words feels bananas. This was right smack in the middle of the peak of my Smosh Games career. I was chronically online. Internet culture was coursing through my veins. I was making videos 24/7, and that was my life. So this chance felt like I could temporarily slide into an alternate universe with sand and ocean and no internet, no Wi-Fi, plus mix in some adventure and physical competition. I mean, I was all in. And let's talk about my audition. I talked a big game.
I want to be on Survivor. I don't want to be on Survivor. I want to win Survivor.
I was born for this. So cut to April. It's the first day of filming. It's finally go time. We're crammed into these little speedboats racing around the Fijian Ocean. And this particular shot is crazy because sure, a drone from like Best Buy these days could get this shot, but no. It is a full-on helicopter with Jeff Probst and a cameraman just hanging off of the edge. I mean, they were filming us in the boats, but honestly, they were the ones that looked like the main characters in an action movie. And pair that with the sound of the ocean crashing into the boats with every single wave. I was like, yeah, I wanted adventure. I am getting adventure. Then we land on the island. We won our first challenge, and that was a relief. I mean, it was overwhelming. Our tribe kicked ass, and for a moment, I was relaxed. Like I could just find my footing again. Then we lost the second challenge. Now it was a scramble for strategy and whispers and plans. What happens next depends on the bonds you just made. Jeff started reading the votes, my name, again, and again. And all I could think was, this is not the ending I promised in my audition. My torch was snuffed, and with it went the version of me I thought the world would see. And I hated what was left. I was the second person voted out of season 33 of Survivor, Millennials versus Gen X. And while I didn't walk away with $1 million, I walked away with lessons that were worth far more. And I'll tell you why. By the way, I just have to interject. You might have noticed that I played a little section of my actual audition. I've never released this, but channel members have full access. This is some primo exclusive borderline cringy content, and I am reacting to it for the first time ever. So if you're curious, I'd love it if you join us in the tavern so we can discuss, because I need some friends to talk about this. And you can answer questions like, if you were a casting director, would you cast me based off of this audition? What are your first thoughts on it? Things like that. I am so curious what you think. Okay, anyway, back to the show. When I flew back home in May, I dove back into my normal life, back into the arms of my partner, my friends, Smosh, filming, gaming, all the things that made sense and felt familiar. And in any other reality, that would have been perfectly healthy. But my normal was a way of proving something to myself. It was me proving to my bruised freaking ego that I didn't need Survivor to feel whole, that I had self-worth in other places, that I was loved and valued outside of a game that totally ripped me to shreds, which sounds so petty and silly and kind of like a juvenile breakup move. Like, see, I don't need you. I am having so much fun over here. That was the underlining feeling of normalcy. Because to be completely honest, Survivor stripped me completely bare. And I don't mean just putting castaways in basically their underwear. I mean, it stripped me down to a layer of myself that I thought was long gone. That underneath the veneer of internet fame, the accolades, the support of my relationships, I found a version of myself that was scared and small, and I hated that she was in there. Oof, is this getting heavier or what? Don't worry, we're gonna pick it up. Before the first episode ever aired, I came out with a series on Smosh Games called Outlaster. And it was this mock Survivor show in Minecraft to build hype for my season. And I poured everything into producing it. Thinking back on it though, I think it was a little bit of, yeah, sure, marketing and all that stuff, like hyping up that I was on it. But I think there's also a version of me that wanted to kind of like control in some ways, you know, like playing in a world where I was safe with friends who already knew me and accepted me. And it was almost my way of kind of doing a redo, but on my own terms. It was a way of garnering any sense of control. With all that said, I had a very, very fun time producing that show, and I love it still to this day. But, you know, I think that in hindsight, there was a little bit of me kind of trying to like fix my own reality by jumping into a digital reality. Oh man, that's such a millennial thing. Don't you think that it really plays out perfectly for the season? This is the type of soundbite that they were looking for on the show. If I can't control my own reality, I'm just gonna go into a virtual one. Now fast forward to the moment where the season starts. That first episode hits and it is absolutely fire. Friends I hadn't heard from in ages like came out of the woodwork to congratulate me. All across the board, people told me that they were sure I'd go far and they had so much faith in me that there was no way I wouldn't make it to the end. Survivor subreddits were calling me Final 3, and there was so much excitement and so much joy, and at the same time, all I could think was, they're gonna be so disappointed in me next week. I had tied so much of my worth to delivering on this unspoken promise to my friends and to my fans, the audience, the show. So with that feeling, I tucked in my tail and made myself unseen. I didn't lean into Survivor in the way I could have. I didn't go to a lot of the gatherings. I stayed on the sidelines of the community, partly because I didn't want more people to see me fail by watching the episodes, and partly because I didn't feel like I'd earned a seat on the metaphorical jury, if you will. And I let my discomfort hold me back. And if you've ever felt that way, I just want to say I can relate, I empathize. Hiding can feel like the safest option when the weight of disappointment feels way too heavy to face. But the thing about hiding is that it does not heal you by any means. It just lets the shame settle in deeper and it just sits there and rots, you know? And at some point I came to and I was like, I can't do this. Something has to shift. I just realized my favorite light isn't on. Oh, is this gonna change things too dramatically? But so nice with it on. It's gonna change what this video looks like. It's the next act. Here's where we get into the meaty shit. What I learned, and hopefully things that are additive to your life. The first step was to name what I felt. Or perhaps it was to get into the habit of naming what I felt. Like a lot of people, I would just feel what I feel and react the best way I knew how. That sounds like the normal human sort of like way of being, right? But naming emotions that were more specific than happy, mad, or sad was where this process really started for me. And until I went through this process, I didn't realize the personal associations I had with certain emotions and words. Words like shame and embarrassment, disappointment, and of course, failure. They all weighed differently in my mind. They all hit differently. And some of the words were scarier than others because I had core memories and traumas tied to them. I mean, okay, so I'll use like the word shame, for example. I would throw that word around like everybody with Game of Thrones memes, but I didn't realize turning that word inward and saying the words, I'm ashamed, would have such an effect on me. And look, I don't know where you are with your mental health journey and all that stuff, but this is where I was starting from. Here's why naming it matters. When you put your words to a feeling, you take it out of the shadows. Your brain stops treating it like some shapeless threat and starts recognizing it as something specific you can work with. And so, with my newfound naming of the feelings, the next step was to get curious and ask all the questions, especially the scary ones. Where is this coming from? Why does this moment feel so big? Is it really about what happened, or is it brushing up against something much deeper, much older? Okay, now at this stage, some shit's gonna get stirred up, but don't get scared. We can do this. I did this, you can do this. But I get it. Asking yourself, where is my shame coming from? Yeah, these are big questions with big emotions attached to them. I know. Just know that you are not alone, friend. This part sucks ass, but it is so very worth it. I'll tell you, when I was digging around in my feelings, sometimes the answer didn't surprise me at all. Other times, I'm like, okay, yeah, of course I'm still traumatized by the time I misspelled giraffe in the school spelling bee, and the look of disappointment in my teammates' faces is still plastered in my mind. Just as a hypothetical. Could happen to anybody. G-I-R-R-A... No, it's G-I-R-A-F... Is it 2 Fs? Or is it 2 R's? My fear of failure was tied to the fear of being left out and rejected. It was tied to so many memories of feeling like my worth was dependent on winning. Little backstory, I grew up in competitive ballet, and I took on the burden of impossibly high expectations of a ballerina at a very young age. It did some shit to me. Oh, and shame. Let's talk about shame. Shame has a way of hitching a ride with every unresolved moment in your past. So when it shows up, when it creeps up on you, it often feels way heavier than the situation calls for. It's like a TARDIS situation in backpack form, where the backpack looks small, but it's like it's bigger on the inside. Nobody gets this reference. Let's move on. Here's why curiosity matters. It creates space between you and the feeling. Instead of being in it, you get to observe it. That shift from I'm a failure to I'm noticing I feel like a failure sounds small, but it changes how much power it actually has over you. And if this is sounding confusing and if you're stuck or the answers feel too tangled up in your mind, this is where sharing comes in. A therapist can really help you see patterns you might miss on your own and help guide you in cognitive reframing, which is what that was. Shifting from an I am to an I'm noticing. So, at this point, I was naming the feeling and getting curious, asking the hard questions. Now what? This was the turning point for me, deciding what stays with you and what gets cut loose. What are you voting off the... This is where you shift from understanding the failure to reshaping it like it's a beautiful clay mold. This is what helped me most. First, it was testing the belief. When I was hearing myself say, I'm a failure, or I've let everyone down, I would make myself imagine my closest friends saying that about themselves to me. I'd imagine them telling me the entire story. I lost a competition show and let everyone down, therefore I am a failure. And then I'd ask myself, I'd really imagine myself being on the other side. I would ask myself, would I agree with them? Would I agree that they are a failure because of this? Would I think less of them? What are the ways that I would judge them? And for everything, the answer is like, no, I wouldn't judge them. No, I wouldn't write them off. No, I wouldn't think that they're a failure. Instead, I would love them and assure them that their worth isn't tied to an outcome of a win. I would get them out of the metaphorical gutter and say, let's go, bitch, we're going out. And even though this is a hypothetical situation made up in my mind, when I was able to still then catch myself showing kindness with such ease to others, but never to myself, what I needed to heal became much clearer. This exercise helps you pull yourself out of shame's like really shitty echo chamber, and it lets you see the belief for what it is, which is a distorted thought. It's not a fact. The other thing that helped was releasing the rest. Once you've spotted a belief that's holding you back, picture setting it down, literally. It sounds silly, but you could also do it the physical way. Some people physically write it on paper and rip it up. I burned my piece of paper and it felt good. The point is to make a conscious choice, to tell yourself that I am not carrying this anymore. It's heavy and it sucks. For me, it was leaving behind the belief that my worth was dependent on winning. And letting it go didn't mean having no ego. It meant having one that wasn't built on really fragile conditions. It helped me remind me that a loss doesn't erase the effort or the courage or the heart you bring to the table. I get to own the fact now that it's really cool that I can call myself an alumni of a show like Survivor. And for me, this whole series is part of that process, reflecting on my time and deciding what's worth carrying forward and what's ready to stay on the island. It's making one person out there happy, I hope. I can't remember where I heard this quote, but I like it, and maybe it'll resonate. It said, "Failure isn't the period at the end of your story. It is just a plot twist. The next sentence is up to you." I didn't walk away from Survivor with $1 million prize, but I like to say that I walked away with $1 million education. Is that me coping? Probably. But it is one that has shaped how I see myself and how I show up in the world. And honestly, that payoff is worth so much. Not that I'd say no to the actual million. If you've got $1 million floating around, If there's something I hope you take away from this episode, it's that if you're feeling emotions tied to failure and shame and you're not sure, you are certainly not alone. This episode is just the start of this series, so if you liked it, please let me know in the comments, like and subscribe and do all the things, and keep a lookout for the next What I Learned on Survivor, which is all about first impressions. And to kick it off, I will share a behind-the-scenes story almost no one knows, which is how I ended up on the same wilderness survival course with someone from my season months before the game even started. A situation Survivor production works very hard to avoid, and trust me, you're gonna want to hear this one. Thank you so much for being here with me. I would love to know what resonated with you and what you're taking away from this episode. I appreciate you. I'm rooting for you. Be well, friend, and I'll see you in the next one.